All right, well, I guess we can get started. The perils of speaking towards the end of the conference. Well, first of all, I'll pretend that we have a big crowd here. And second of all, it looks like all the good points have been made. And if you, as I was sitting through the keynote presentations this morning, it seemed to me that Lisa and Tamara, they somehow hacked into my computer in the middle of the night and they stole my good ideas. Of course, the second possible explanation is that my ideas are not that original, but it's a lot harder to accept. All right, so the title of my presentation is "With Our System, the Patient Always Wins: The Most Free Guide to Taking the Betting Out of Your Advanced Analytics." We're in Vegas, so we have to talk about betting and odds and all that sort of thing. So let's dive into it. I represent NorthShore Edward-Elmhurst Health. It's a comprehensive healthcare provider in the suburbs of Chicago. Thank you. Yes. We are, after a recent merger, we're the third largest healthcare delivery system in the state of Illinois, 9 hospitals, 2,400 beds. The rest of the statistics you can see on the slide. So we are reasonably large, not the largest player in town, but I think respectable size. Awards and recognitions, we have collected a plethora of awards and recognitions, including, if that tells you anything, Stage 7 award for advanced analytics, which is no small feat. But we provide quality care to our patients. All right, so let's get started on the presentation itself. So what do you do? How? I mean, you're here. You are trying to place your bet on advanced analytics, on machine learning, MLOps, and all the terms that have recently. Ooh, that's not the right button. No, absolutely not. Have recently come into play in the supported cloud, and you need to decide what to do and what the heck is going on. If you're not an expert, if you haven't done this for a long time, you can easily get confused, of course, and you can get taken for a ride in principle. So you have to know what sort of game you're playing. Speaking of, well, the first thing to do before you hit the slot machines is you have to learn how to play this game, right? So you have to know the rules of the game. Here's one example. So I was interviewing a person for a position on our team, and I asked him a simple question that, by the way, if you ever apply to work on our team, that's my favorite interview question. It tells me everything I need to know about the person, believe it or not. I asked him to explain logistic regression, just regression in principle. You get to know a lot about people by asking that question. And so we came to the question of solving a quadratic equation. And that person tells me with a straight face that you apply an optimization algorithm to solve a quadratic equation. That was done in 1593. There was no machine learning in 1593 as we know it. Not only did that person tell me that that was the way to do it, but when I tried to gently correct them that this was not how it's normally done, they insisted and said, no, that you can also do it this way. So after that, kind of, you wait for the interview to be over. But if you're not a specialist, you wouldn't know. So that's kind of a digression. So the first step, have a plan. What does that mean? Well, how do you? Yes. Ooh, no way. Doesn't look like my plan is working exactly as envisioned. But bear with me, different line. So So the difference here is to know one from the other. When do you build and when do you buy? So that's, I don't have an exact solution for that. You have to know what you're getting into, but you also have to have some common sense. In other words, you can buy stuff, but it may not necessarily be what you need. Getting an operational sponsor, that's key to success. If, in my experience, if you don't have somebody who is a revenue center and who has a keen interest in seeing the success of your project, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen that way. Involve stakeholders early. What does that mean? Well, you know, there are two sorts of themes that I made. In many presentations during this conference, it was mentioned that if you go away for 6 months and then you bring your product to the stakeholder and then you tell them, look what I did, that's not going to end well, especially in light of what Lisa just said about in previous presentation, previous keynote, about the upcoming recession and the reduction in force. So no, you have to make sure that you have a conversation. Iterate quickly. Another thing, another of my pet peeves is, and I do intend to polemize with some of the presenters here. One way to do it is to say, well, we will commoditize everything. This is going to be an assembly line, and so we'll write a manual. We'll have a manual for everything. How many of you think that the Wright brothers had a manual on how to build an airplane? So, or maybe that Jeff Bezos, to make it more recent and more relevant, had a manual on how to create a company that would sell everything through delivery. I mean, so there's a great book on innovation, and that is kind of the main premise. You have to iterate and fail quickly. And if you are doing something truly innovative, you cannot have a manual. You cannot have policies and procedures. That's the easiest way to kill it. Monitor model performance. Yes, you have to know whether your model is working or not and why. And bias, last but not least, you don't want to end up with a model that, for example, disadvantages already disadvantaged groups of population. Well, here, I just contradicted myself. Look at this slide. The kind of a classic PowerPoint. The slide, I think you've seen it probably 10 times through the last 2 days. But that is kind of the general idea. I just don't have enough kind of fresh ideas on how to present things, so I just took a PowerPoint demo. But you have to make sure that at least you have something to show to your management. This looks good, but in reality, this is all fluid. This is all go back and forth. It's not set in stone. All right. So now another rule. Going back to our betting topic, another rule is when you're trying to win a game, you have to distract the person's attention from the actual game they play. That's why they have sound. They have those servers who carry drinks around and give them to you for free. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do in this presentation. I'm trying to jump from one topic to another. That's great. So here, another digression. I think mine is the third presentation, at least those that I attended, that talks about COVID. I thought it would be the other way around. I thought all of the presentations would include COVID predictions at some point, but that's a great example. So there was no manual. Nobody, if anybody here knew 4 years ago that we were going to have a pandemic precisely in 2020, well then, I'll get you a free drink at the cocktail reception at 4 p.m. So that's kind of the situation where you're kind of thrown into deep water with this whole thing, and you don't know what to do. And the management is looking up to you, and they expect you to come up with something, not necessarily a good prediction, but at least they want to be comforted that somebody is looking at it and somebody is paying attention. You know, the desperate salesman. No pun intended here. So the first, no way. The first step here, I have to speed it up. So in other words, there's a period where nobody knows what you're doing. And then after that, you have to come up with something. So the first step is, well, what do you at least come up with a prediction? Tell them what you might expect. And then, when things settle into a certain pattern, that's when you can start providing some confidence intervals, if you will, or plan for secondary features of what your model is going to predict. Recovery action, and then eventually you get it to be more and more accurate as time goes on and on. So I have explained this slide. This is the number of patients in the hospital. That's what physicians need to know. And then the rest of this kind of is the trajectory of the whole. So in Europe, one thing, if anybody has seen kind of people shuffle those symbols around, that's kind of my point here is, well, do you really trust the provider of the data? And the example is about the death data that all of a sudden in 2013 the Social Security Administration failed to provide. It just stopped. So there was some kind of legislation adopted. And so now all of a sudden your data is wrong. And you're left to figure out why, and you're left to figure out what to do about it. So you don't trust the data. Well, in that case, you make do with the data you have. So you make certain assumptions. Surprisingly, in many instances, even a small amount of data works. So if there is a signal, there is a signal. Bias. So we have a model called Clinical Analytics Prediction Engine, which has been described in my other presentations, and there's a paper on that. It predicts readmissions and mortality. What the question was, well, is this model biased with respect to certain socioeconomic groups? And we did an analysis. And here you can see the correlations between model predictions and different groups of people. So when the correlation is high, yes, you can say that there's probably a relationship. When that correlation is low, it doesn't mean there isn't. It means that we couldn't find it, but at least we tried. So you can see R squared is very close to 0. That means that most likely our model is not biased, but we cannot guarantee that. That's all we can say. So, another great example, if you're familiar with the HARD score, which is the risk of somebody getting a heart attack within the next 6 weeks, it's widely used, it's adopted. The only problem is there's no real reason to believe that this is a properly constructed model. It's convenient, it's appealing, but it doesn't necessarily work as intended. So in that sense, even though it was published, it doesn't mean that it's a good thing. Sticking to the system. So this example is a prediction of patient throughput. I have a colleague who's actually quite a bit more capable than I, and she developed a time series model that predicts the number of patients in the hospital at any given time, given that the patient was admitted to the emergency department. So the model, as you can see, the fit is not perfect, but it's quite impressive. So, and how that was done through constant testing and retesting. Well, you have to change your model as circumstances require, and we can see that I mentioned the key model in the beginning. So we noticed over time, a lot of models go into production and get forgotten. We noticed over time that there's a drift in model performance. On the left you see mortality, on the right you see readmission. So as that drift happens, we have to analyze why, and we have to say we need either to do something or this is a natural feature because we're affecting the outcome by performing interventions in patients. Now, a lot of a lot of claims are made about the accuracy of models. I asked, by the way, that many people wrote COVID prediction models, asked about their accuracy. They said our model is accurate, but how accurate? So what we did here, and it's in the paper that we published, we actually did run a comparison. We developed a metric similar to root mean squared error that said, well, this is how well it works. This is the percentage of times that the model predicted well. All right, so we'll stop here. If we, you have to make sure that your efforts are well aligned, and this is our team. So things have changed, but the core of the team is still there. As you can see, it's quite diverse and quite dynamic. Apologies for going a little bit over time, but I'll be available to answer questions. And thank you to our sponsors and the organizers.